The customer is not always right. In fact, a lot of times they're wrong, and they try to argue with me, but they're wrong, especially about this topic. Let's talk about it. I get this a lot where people will show me a plant that is exhibiting these symptoms, and there's only one thing that does that. And this is herbicide damage. Specifically, what we're looking at are two chemicals, dicamba and 2,4-D. These are very common broadleaf weed killers that are in a lot of different lawn products that are used around the house. And then there's also ways that they can definitely sneak up on people without them knowing. And when you see this specific type of curling of the leaves and marginal burns, it's the only thing that will cause this type of damage. So people will bring in their plants or pictures of their plants and they ask me what's wrong with them. I tell them it's herbicide damage, and that's when they start arguing with me because they swear up and down that they have not sprayed anything on their plants. So one really common way that this happens is through lawn care companies. A lot of times these companies that will go in and spray weeds in the yard are not as careful as they need to be. So they get way too close to young trees, or they spray on a windy day, and they get what's called herbicide drift, where it can actually drift from far away and attack your plants, essentially. This also happens a lot in rural areas where you've got farmers that can be spraying up to a half a mile away, but if it's windy, that herbicide will drift and come onto your property and damage your plants. Another one would be weed and feed fertilizers. Granular weed killers will oftentimes persist into the soil, get absorbed by the root systems of trees and shrubs that you didn't have any intention of hurting, but they definitely can be hurt by it. And the last one is even more insidious, and that's whenever herbicide shows up in places that you don't think that it can. And those two places can be compost or cow manure. Those two chemicals are so persistent, in fact, that if a farmer or a rancher has sprayed their fields with dicamba or 2,4-D, and then cows go out and ingest that grass that has been sprayed with it, it will persist all the way through their gut system and end up in the manure and even through the composting process of the manure. And then whenever you incorporate that into your garden, you will see it get picked up by your tomato plants, and peppers especially are sensitive to it. That's why you must carefully source the manure that you use and the compost that you use, because the same thing happens with compost that comes from grass clippings that have been treated with chemicals. And in order to test the cow manure that we sell here at the store, I planted a tomato plant straight into it, and I did not see any of that burn or curling happening. And so that shows me that this is a clean manure that we can then sell with confidence here in our store. If your plants have gotten damaged by herbicide, treatment is going to depend on what kind of plant it is. If it's a tomato plant, for example, and it's a severe case, you probably need to just go ahead and remove that, and you may have to do a soil change. Now, if it's on a woody ornamental or a shade tree or something like that, oftentimes if you continue to irrigate, they will then outgrow it, and that will get diluted enough where those plants can recover. But this is definitely a problem that is continuing to grow and something you should be on the lookout for.